Today's topic would be how top enterprises deliver success plans at scale. And before we dive into this topic, I just want to do some introduction here. So for those of you who are not familiar, I'm Sherrod, I'm VP Product here at EverAfter for the past 4.5 years. And for those of you who are not familiar with EverAfter, we allow you to scale customer success one digital touch at a time. We are a customer interface platform, allows you to productize a lot of different customer programs that you have to create a more digital transformation to your org base. And our AI-powered interface builder allows you to choose a program, provide some information that you need to support this program, and then let AI do the magic. After that, you can review the different program and publish and share it with customers. Just as a quote from one of our dear customers at Frontify, that they are able to share with EverAfter a customer-led experience that can foster transparency and collaboration throughout the different lifecycle stages with a very contextual, personalized, and engaging way. And just one last slide before I would be happy to introduce you to our panelists. When I speak about customer programs, there are actually many different types of customer programs that you can deliver and should deliver to your customers. Some are under the customer onboarding stage, under the post-onboarding. Some could be under the sales effort and also customer marketing. But we are here to talk today and to zoom in on a super relevant program that if you're not doing, you should be doing, which would be the Success Plan program. And without further ado, Sherrod, maybe you can start by introducing yourself, and after that, Sangita, you can continue. So, hey.
Yep, happy to. So I'm Sherrod Patching. Thank you for having me on. So I'm the VP of Customer Success at a company called GitLab. We are a DevSecOps platform, if you don't know of us. So customer success at GitLab is 5 teams. So we have a customer success architect, manager, engineer team. We also have digital success as well as the renewals team. So those 5 together are our CS. So excited to talk to you today about kind of how we think about success plans and also the evolution of those within GitLab.
Thank you for joining us. Hey, Sangita.
Absolutely. So hello, everybody. I'm Sangita Ray, and I actually like to introduce myself as a customer success enthusiast. I've been in this space for more than 15 years across multiple organizations in various industries at various levels. And it really has been very fascinating to see how this function has evolved and actually is continuously evolving over a period of time. Currently, I work at UiPath, where my team and I are responsible for driving adoption, utilization, and value while influencing renewal and expansions as well. Those who don't know UiPath, we are an end-to-end automation platform utilizing various technologies as well as Gen and specialized AI, focusing on agentic automation. And Sharon, like you, our team is actually multifaceted as well. We don't call ourselves customer success. We call us client success, and it's a combination of customer success, consultants called automation advisors, and our technical account managers as well.
All right. Before we start with the flow that we plan, I do want to share some statistics that I researched online, and I found some I think numbers that might be relevant to our discussion. And this is a report provided by Salesforce that I guess all of you are familiar with. And basically the purpose of this report was to tell us that our customers' expectations are growing. So maybe it could help us during this discussion. And basically what it found is that 73% of customers today, when the technology advances, they expect better personalization that we should deliver them. In addition to that, and this is, I think, super relevant for this discussion, is that 65% of them expect us to adapt to their changing needs and preference. And in addition to that, and this maybe should alarm us, that 61% of customers say that most companies treat them as numbers. So with that as a part of the discussion, I think that my first question for you would be, what are the needed ingredients for a successful success plan? And you could also tell us, like, what's your take on a success plan? What is it, and what the needed ingredients of that?
Maybe I'll jump in first. So I wrote a couple down as we were kind of talking about this from last week as well. So I think as we think about what we have learned and some of the challenges too, and having learned things the hard ways at GitLab, outcome orientation is critical. And I think you'll see that across the industry also. And I know we were talking about this last week, but the outcome orientation is number one from a priority standpoint. So ensuring that it's not just that there's a plan, but that plan is going to get the customer to what they expect, and that your focus is actually on the outcomes more than on the plan itself. The plan matters, but I think historically in customer success, we have talked about you need to have a success plan. And whilst that is true, that really is table stakes these days, but you need to be outcome orientated, that you're really driving towards those outcomes. So I'd say that was one, that there's an orientation towards the outcomes. And how do you ensure that we are all accountable for the customers getting to their outcomes? So what's the framework you need to put in place? Reporting and the metrics. Number two would be clear ownership. So really ensuring that there is ownership both on the customer side and on our side. If we have a plan and the customer's not bought in, or the people who need to kind of execute on the plan are not bought in, then the plan won't be successful. Data-driven approach is critical. So as you're thinking about what does this mean in metrics and numbers, kind of back to the framework, both for ourselves, but also for the customer. How are they going to map this plan to business value? And what are the technical pieces that need to happen along the way? And then how do those kind of tie in from a metric standpoint so that you know if you're on track or not? Executive alignment is critical. So ensuring that you've got buy-in when things get off of track. And then the other piece that I kind of added in was adaptability. So being able to be flexible and recognizing that the customer's timelines may change. And also the customer's needs may evolve or change as you go through this. And so how do you ensure that it's not so rigid that it can't kind of flex and change with the customer over time?
I love it. So outcome-based ownership, data-driven approach, executive alignment, and adaptability. Yeah. Just on the executive alignment on your end, on your customer end, or both?
I'd say it's both. On the customer end is critical. We oftentimes find that when you're working with individuals on the customer side who potentially end up getting sucked up into other things, other priorities, bringing them back on track is more likely to happen through a realignment between themselves and their executive sponsor than us as the vendor trying to hold them accountable. So ensuring that you've got the right level of executive sponsorship on the customer side means that if things do go sideways, you can get them back on track in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Yes, Sangita, what's on your plate?
Yeah, outcome is extremely critical for us too. It's all about value, value, value. So when it comes to success plan, it needs to be strategic, but at the same time, it needs to be actionable. I would say it needs to be ambitious, but at the same time, it needs to be feasible. So the way we treat success plan is it has the big picture, but it needs to be broken down into milestones with specific goals, with specific short-term wins, as well as the long-term objectives as well. And one thing which is very important for success plans to be successful is, pun intended, that instead of being a deliverable for the customer success, it needs to be co-owned by the customers, similar to what Sherrod mentioned, and also by the broader cross-functional team, whether it is the sales rep, whether the executive sponsors, operational champions from the customer side, or even the extended team of your TAMs, CS engineers, and so on. And the most important thing I would say is its success plan. It needs to have customers' definition of success. It's not your success plan. It needs to have the definition of customer success, whether it's cost reduction, it's revenue growth, efficiency, or whatever it is. And then it needs to be tracked on an ongoing basis. It should not be a one-time thing so that, yes, you've done it and it's done, but that it really needs to be tracked on an ongoing basis as well through QBRs, health check, or whatever it is.
So I wrote down a lot of stuff. I will highlight that it needs to be strategic and actionable, ambitious and feasible. And I really like this like two axes that we should consider. On our preparation call, we talked about a lot of different frameworks that might work when we do success plan in general, but mostly when we focus on SMBs and non-managed customers. So with that, maybe we can start by talking about these frameworks that hopefully the audience could practice themselves. So Sangita, would you like to start with one of the frameworks or methodologies that you saw work well?
Absolutely. And as I was mentioning, right, for us, success plan is all about value, to the level that we rebranded our success plan to call it value delivery plan. It's all about delivering the value. So the way we treat the framework for a success value is an integrated approach, essentially. So it is very forward-looking, very strategic, but really broken down into actions. So think of it as an integrated approach, which combines the strategic vision, the tactical success, as well as the hands-on adoption to make sure that there is customer retention, customer satisfaction, and that long-term view as well. So the way we actually have formatted it is that it captures the business goals, the strategic objectives, but actually focusing on resulting value, the success metrics, KPIs, and so on. And the most favorite thing about this framework for me is that it is a combination of the account plan, which is usually the strategic alignment between us and the customer, plus the customer success plan, which focuses on achieving the tangible outcomes, and also the consumption plan, which is focused on maximizing the utilization. So it brings everything together. It is co-owned by the customer and us, the customer success manager, and the broader team as well. And we have found it very, very successful as it connects the execution plan to the value realization targets and the contract as well. It has multiple value streams, and then it's broken down quarter by quarter, painting the whole picture into actionable milestones over a period of time.
What's like the interface that you share it with the customer?
As of
after it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we actually maintain it in a PowerPoint itself, and that's what we exchange with the customer, and then we use it on our health checks, our QBRs, and so on. And we co-create it with the customer using their roadmaps as well. And internally, we use our Gainsight to maintain it on a periodic basis.
Okay, cool. So you have this document that from now and then you go back with the customer just like to align on that and update the status and.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sure. I know that you have something differently that you've actually built in your company.
We have. So we actually use GitLab. So the team, it depends on the customer segment. So for the customers that are CSM assigned, then some of the team have built a UI within GitLab. And in fact, I have a picture. I thought maybe I would show you if that's all right.
Yeah, we like visuals.
Seems like sharing's not turned on.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna.
Yeah. You can now share.
All right, there we go. So this is just from one of our decks, but this will show you what it looks like. So essentially, the success plans for the customers that do have a CSM or a CSA look a little bit like this on the right-hand side. So we're actually using GitLab issues, or if you're familiar with Jira, then kind of tickets. So we use epics and issues that kind of roll up into the customer objectives. And then we have a process that we're rolling out that really is new this year of ensuring that everything is both mutually agreed and quantitative. And we're using AI to actually give us scoring on these objectives. So what we do is the CSM puts these in partnership with the customer. These are interactive with the customer. So they're in a collaboration project where the customer can engage. So all the work that happens in the issues back and forth with the customer. So there's a track of what's happening over time. And then we use Duo, which is our AI solution, to actually look at all of the objectives in place at the beginning and then through each iteration to ensure that they're smart objectives, that we have the right metrics in place, and that it's kind of going to lead towards the value that we're looking to see for customers. So we thought this was fun. And we actually have got some of our team who have used some of the APIs between GitLab and Gainsight to then write the critical data points into Gainsight. So we use Gainsight for a lot of the reporting. But the management of this living, breathing document actually happens within GitLab, which we're pretty pleased with. So that's when there's CSM assigned. But your question, I think, was actually around SMB also. So SMB looks a little different just because of the scale. We do have a large long tail of customers. So one of the things we've seen work really well with a long tail customer are things like a maturity assessment. So as a customer becomes a customer, allowing them some interface or a form where they can then fill out some information about their business and where they are on that journey, which then spits out a set of recommendations. So they could take them on a content path. We have GitLab University with specific landing pages. So kind of based on their response, you then can take them on content journeys, both through email programs and also through kind of curated learning and things like your customer portals or whatever you have available. And Sangita, I know you've got a really great maturity assessment you do for your SMB. So something similar, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Yes, we are doing exactly the same thing. So we call it automation at scale maturity assessment. So as a part of onboarding, we host webinars for our cohorts of new SMB customers, our non-managed customers as well. And we train them to do this maturity assessment. So this maturity assessment essentially is a questionnaire which helps the customers compare their current state with their target state based on their own goals and objectives. And leveraging that information, it spits out a heat map, which helps them identify and prioritize the items which they should be focusing on to attain their goals. So it's all about their goals, their objectives. And then, like Sherrod, you guys do, we also provide our customers access to various playbooks and best practice guidelines to help them execute those actions. And then we use AI to keep a track of how they're progressing in those.
I mean, first of all, I think that everything here is gold. So thank you for sharing that with us. I do want to go back to the example of Sherrod with where you build it in GitLab. So who defined and who actually, I mean, who had the metric that this initiative solved? I mean, who thought that this is something that needs to be productized in that aspect?
So maybe let me answer. There's two different questions. So like, who has the metrics for the success plans, you mean? Like, where does that come from? I mean, there are typically, like most of our customers, when they're looking to use GitLab, they're looking for similar things. So they're looking for kind of faster time to market. So there's a set of things that customers typically are looking to do. The idea for you really curating the success plan in this way came from our CS team, just from some team that were really excited about actually teaching our customers to fish using our own platform. So it's like, how can we actually use GitLab to teach customers kind of the power of GitLab? So some of our team did that, which is super fun. But the metrics themselves, they really come from, there's just a consistent set of things that typically customers are looking to do. They're wanting to increase their security posture, to improve that. They're wanting to, accelerate time to market. So there are a set of things. You've also got things like the DORA metrics or some of those types of things that you can kind of weave in as well. And then beneath that, then you've got the customer specific pieces. So in a perfect world, and it doesn't always happen, but in a perfect world, there is a pre-sales customer success plan that is led by the solution architect. So they're talking to the customer about, once you buy this, what is this going to look like in the post-sale process? And the SA is already starting that conversation. So the customer is ready for the change management pieces that need to happen. That then is handed to the CSM or the CSA, and then we then execute on that. And that's true of whether it's a net new customer or whether it's an upsell for an existing customer.
And I think that maybe just to emphasize the importance of having something that is collaborative and like in the face of the customer, while we can still update the internal systems such as Gainsight and for reporting purposes and internal measurement. And we, by the way, a Gainsight partner, we have a bidirectional integration. So a lot of our customers leverage EverAfter for the customer facing piece, while they'll still have all of the reporting back to their CSP. And nice. What's the engagement with that in terms of customers? And for both examples, I think also for the maturity model.
I mean, for us specifically, the engagement is high. So you're either, the way the issues work, you can use them instead of email. So instead of having all the back and forth with the customer over a call, I mean, we do still have calls, but all of the actions on all of the back and forth is all followed up in issues. So it basically is instead of emails, but then it's associated to the particular objectives. So it's much easier to manage projects at scale using something like that with structure than kind of email back and forth. So customer collaboration is high. I actually was with a customer in London a few weeks back, and they wanted access for all of their executives. So the CTO wanted access, and he wanted to be able to get in there and actually show to the board some of the things that they were working on and be able to plug into some of the details. So it's fun to see that level of interest.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Sangita, how customers do this maturity evaluation, and what's like the engagement that you saw?
Our maturity assessment is pretty good. The engagement is pretty high. It's a self-serve tool. It is available as an app as well as an Excel, and they can do it individually. Different stakeholders can do it, and it can give you an average scoring and then spit out a number, or it can be done as a team as well. And then what we have seen it to be most impactful is when we take those results and then they use it in executive meetings as well. And we help them map it to their goals and objectives so that it is really aligned to what they're trying to do.
I do want to show an example because I think that this maturity assessment model is something that is really, really good program to really drive a lot of the things that we talked about. So this is an example of how you could actually automate your maturity assessment for customers. So you can send with them, and this we use EverAfter for that. So you can assess them and send them like a self-reporting questionnaire. So for example, I have here 6 different questions. That once I click save, it captures the information, and based on a predefined logic, it helps me to calculate my score and my maturity level, for example. And let's say that I made a mistake and I don't know, this is the right action. And based on that, it automatically calculates the updated score. And I think that we also added some elements of gamification, because once I click get recommendations, the content will refresh once again. And then I have here the actual set of recommendations based on the actual product usage of the customer, what they need to do, and what are the set of recommendations that they need to take in order to move them to the next step, and then to the next step, and then to the next step. And this is something that we see that is working really, really nicely in really creating this element of doing the actionable piece, the feasibility of that, because it's much easier for me to move from one step to another. So I just wonder what's like, I mean, if this is something similar to, if you have any thoughts around this flow.
Conceptually, ours is exactly what you showed. It's not digitalized to the extent which you have it here, but conceptually, it's exactly the same. Part of it is digitalized, part of it is through documents as well.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then being able to take those recommendations and then kind of drive programs through that is critical as well. So being able to stitch that into the digital approach that you take is critical, so that you're not just leaving a customer to then go and self-serve from there, but actually driving some kind of outcome for them.
Yeah, and it's super relevant for them because it's based on their self-reporting and based on what they actually configured already in the product or not, and it gives them this personalized recommendation. Okay, so do you have any other frameworks that worth discussing?
I mean, there are a few, I would say. I mean, self-service, we talked about a little bit. We have built, we have a digital success team that I mentioned that we have actually really only just established. We've had a number of programs for customers over the last few years, I think 4 or 5 years even now. But we are definitely seeing an increase in just the interest around digital and the need for digital. We did an engagement at GitLab with Deloitte last year, and I think they came back with numbers that was something like there's kind of an 11% reduction in kind of CS budgets. And so as you're seeing those budgets really tightening and over time ensuring that you're more and more, I'm going to say effective, but efficiency matters, right? And so the digital piece becomes critical, because as you grow and scale, you can't just keep throwing bodies at this. You have to drive value through digital. So it doesn't mean instead necessarily that people will always be a critical part, but people can't be your only path to scaling. So it's like digital is just, I cannot say enough how important it is that you build that foundation. So our digital team has 2 primary elements. One is the program side, and then the other is our GitLab University. So the program side is really focused on driving them to GitLab University. And then we've got custom landing pages for net new customers or net new users. Are you a developer or an admin? And so we really kind of look at it that way and then we have health scoring that looks at the consumption of enablement. And so we expect customers within a certain, or a user within a certain kind of time frame, to be consuming these education pieces. So I'd say regardless of framework, whether it's CSM-led or whether it's digital-led, ensuring that it's outcomes-oriented. What do you want that person or that customer to do? And how can you map that to value over time? And then how do you augment that through digital? It's been critical for us.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's all about having not only a success plan framework, but making sure that you have some scorecarding to make sure that you're measuring the progress over the KPIs in the success plan on a periodic basis. One more thing which has really helped us is benchmarking, like comparing the customer's progress against similar organizations to provide insights. That can create a lot of healthy competition, or maybe even FOMO amongst the customers, so that they themselves are more driven to really make those KPIs happen.
Yeah, agree. We rolled out a maturity score, which spoiler alert, don't use the word maturity because it actually creates this visceral reaction. But there are like adoption scores, or there are other ways that you can say, hey, customers like you are typically doing these things or to this level. And we find a lot of traction on that one. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree, and I will share my screen again because we actually introduced like this success enablers model, which allows our customers to understand where they're at in comparing to other customers. So, for example, we really talk a lot about how they can leverage EverAfter for automation. So we provide them this like a scoring around the number of programs and journey, which is another model that we have. And then everything that is not 5 stars, they could actually click and again, get like a deep dive understanding about why they're not 5 stars and get like relevant recommendations on that. And I think that eventually when you tell someone that most people like you already achieve 1, 2, 3, it increases their motivation to actually be there. Because I mean, I consider myself, I mean, at least as good as other customers like me. So I should, it encourages people to take action.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Another framework which I have found very effective is, so we're talking about success plans and that is based on customers' objectives, goals, and so on. But one of the biggest challenges each CSM encounters is maybe the people whom they're talking to, they do not have privy to that information very clearly. So when you're trying to uncover or prioritize customer-specific goals, and it's tough. So for that, I have found 2x2 matrices very useful to drive that information and info out, like effort by impact. A customer might think that this is very impactful, but then you have to figure out how that maps to the effort and accordingly, how do you prioritize that? And even the criticality versus the feasibility matrix. Some things might be critical, but is that really feasible or vice versa? So that kind of mapping also really helps in prioritizing those goals and coming up with a very robust, well-made success plan.
We have here a really relevant and interesting question. One of the people here asked if customer success plans should be one of the first things you do after a customer signs the contract. I often see many orgs leave customer success planning until after onboarding, and they're curious what you think about the timing of customer success plan. That's really a good question.
Yeah, so I think it should be done in the pre-sales process. If you can, if you have someone in the pre-sales process who can partner with you, which we are lucky that we do, then ideally it's really being created then. Because so as you're thinking about that whole purchase conversation, the customer is buying you not because they're interested in adopting GitLab, but because they have a business need. So we want to capture those in the pre-sales process and start to talk about what this means. So much of our growth comes from our existing customer base, and we get to growth faster when we have a plan in the pre-sales process, and we are articulating that and executing against that quickly after the sale.
Completely agree. It should be a part of the pre-sales. And if it has not been done, it should be done as early as possible after onboarding. And most importantly, it's not a one-time thing. It's an iterative thing. So it needs to be revisited, evolved, and so on.
And so how often do you actually verify the goals and update the actual recommendations?
So this is a perfect time, right? Every organization is going through their annual planning and goal setting and so on. So definitely a very detailed session at the beginning of the year, but then every quarter making sure that we are seeing how exactly we are doing across those success criteria. I remember one of the customers, we literally had 8 success criteria in every QBR, and we used to have the traffic light red, amber, green. And we literally were talking at the C-suite about those success criteria, which drove a lot of attention and focus as well. But then again, depending on how like the level of maturity and the engagement, like with many of the customers, it's very good to visit the tactical elements on a monthly health checks as well.
And if we don't have, I mean, so the more we have like more SMB or like low touch customers, then it's less likely that we will have the privilege to speak with them. So do you have any like specific things to consider when we develop this like productized approach for those segments?
We've got a scaled team. It's called On Demand, and they've got kind of an outcomes catalog so you can engage with the On Demand team around a particular outcome. So they're more of a just-in-time motion. So we're looking at customers kind of more broadly across that whole customer base. So they are customers that they're not the very, very long tail, but they're kind of the middle. So it is a pooled motion, but we're specifically looking at where customers are in their journey based on age and based on use case adoption, and then driving particular motions on that. So rather than kind of having it be a programmatic reach out all the time, we're more looking to see, are they where we would expect them to be from kind of their tenure of contract and from the size of company? And then how do we kind of nudge them along through driving offering some of these outcomes to them, or training on outcomes more specifically. Then the SMB, like the lowest of the low, then we have more programmatic check-ins. So like the tiny little investments where it's probably just a small team on a credit card versus kind of a more, a more intentional investment. Then we do have the programmatic check-ins that happen, but more through a digital means.
We have our customer portal as well, and like Sherrod was mentioning, like we have a lot of our assets on various motions there itself, and we use a combination of both push and pull. Like at times we push our customers to those portals to make sure they're leveraging that, and at times we actually host webinars for large cohorts of customers to make sure that they are leveraging it for the exact outcome they want.
I would also recommend that when actually allowing the customers to build, like in a very self-service approach, their own success plan, is to really think about like the top 5, the top 10 potential outcomes that this customer might have, and I mean probably each company knows like their top 5 things of why customers purchase them. So by allowing them more limited choice, we can actually increase the chance of them to provide you this information, and based on that to start acting towards this recommendation. If it's like a multi like value selection, then it's just like scares people, so it might not be as efficient as it could.
Yeah, agree. It also makes it really hard to build the supporting programs too if you've got kind of 20 different options.
That's true, and actually I think that also from a building perspective, then you might have 10 different potential goals, but if you know that 3 goals would be 80% of the outcomes, you could start just with building like really good recommendations on these 3, and then you can start sharing it with customers while you increase the variety of different goals and recommendations. So it doesn't have to be like all or nothing. We have here 2 questions regarding the ratio of CSMs per account within your organizations. If you can share with us some things about that, like enterprise versus digital, and like how does it look like?
We've been on a journey here, and we are kind of midway through this journey. So we have actually done ARR per CSM historically, and that. What I like about ARR per CSM means that as a customer grows, then you have more capacity to spend on that customer. What I don't like about it is it means that the repeatability of your motion is decreasing over time. And so we have actually gone from ARR per CSM to customers per CSM, and we are not there yet. I think it'll take us, honestly, probably a couple of years to get there, because in shifting from ARR per CSM to customers per CSM, you need to be able to say, hey, these are the parameters of what we can do and what we can't do. And the latter piece for us, we rolled out a paid offering this last year, and which gave us the ability to say, hey, for the CSM, today, like here's the parameters of what you get. We can't go much further, but there is an option for you if you want to go further, that is available to you. We can go more deep, and here's what that looks like. So we didn't want to just say no. That's not helpful to customers when they need help. But we did want to be able to say, here's what we can do within kind of with what's included in your contract, and then here's what's available to you if you did want to be a part of the paid offering. So it's not no, but it allows us to have better kind of guardrails around how much time we spend and how we go about it. So the short version is we have been ARR per CSM. We are moving towards customer per CSM, but it'll take us a lot of time. So I think it'll take us a couple of years. And the digital is the digital, and both of our on demand is basically done at kind of a total customer. So it's digital is thousands per individual, as you would expect, and our on demand is hundreds.
Our approach is pretty similar as well, but I would say it's not only the dependency is not only on the number of customers and the ARR, but also the maturity of a customer. So for example, some of the customer, even if they have a very, very high ARR, they're so mature that they're self-sufficient. They don't want much of time and the TLC from the customer success. So at that point, that customer success manager can maybe absorb more accounts as well. So it's sort of for art and science. It's ARR, number of customers, and also the maturity of the customer, the life cycle of the customer as well. So we have our enterprise customer success team where they handle much lesser customers. It may be somewhere around 5 to 7. Then we have our SMB or commercial teams where it's a low touch or medium touch, so the number is much higher. And then we have digital as well, which is one to many, which hundreds and thousands customers as well.
I see that we have here on the chat another question, and maybe we might have some time for another one. So Blair is asking, so success plans are customer specific, but they follow a common template. So I'm using EverAfter to manage user group content. Next step is to allow customers to self-serve their own success plans from a template menu. What should we focus on? And are there any other options to engage customers at scale in their own success planning? So I think that basically the question is how personalized it is and how much like segmented it is.
Yeah, we do have for CSM assigned, we have built some templates, but we have really found that best practice examples kind of go further around. Here's an example of what this can look like versus trying to kind of lock it down because the customers are so unique. GitLab is a very broad platform. So in trying to templatize everything, it actually ended up being more complex than we'd realized. So we have gone towards this is what good looks like as examples. So that's true for the digital piece too, of like, I think back to your point of keeping the options small. So we have value drivers that we've established with GitLab around kind of like time to market and increasing your security posture, improving your cycle time. So how do you kind of map up into some of those and keeping them more narrow? But then what the customer can do within them is quite broad. So I think it's a bit of a gray answer. But the more you the more process you create around these things, the more complex they get very quickly. So just really leading with a more simple template and some best practice examples we have found to be the most impactful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there is a lot of value in having templates so that it really enforces those best practices to the CSMs to make sure they're asking the right questions, they have the right mindset when they're creating the customer success plans. But at the same time, all customers are different. And I encourage that if a customer really has any particular template or their own roadmap, which they prefer using, I would rather have the CSM use that because that's where more engagement will come out of.
I think it's a mixture of both. I mean, I would structure like a segment-based success plan with the relevant recommendations or the relevant potential outcomes that customers from each segment might be relevant on or might have the product configurations for that. So for example, if a customer purchased a specific product line, then I wouldn't like to allow them to choose outcomes or things that I need another product line, or I could do it in terms of if I'd like to create like a CSQL opportunity. So I think that after we have this like role-based or segment-based, then you can allow customers to choose and basically create their own path in it. All right. So we are almost on time. Sangita, Sherrod, do you have any like final words that you would like to share of wisdom that you can share with us on if for the audience that is now like working on these success plans?
I think the biggest learning for us is to establish a framework to be able to measure the success of these, ironically, and then just to be able to quickly iterate over time. So that having the plan, like that's step one, but does the plan work? Does it drive them towards the outcomes? How are you going to track that over time, the actual customer outcomes, and then use those to then improve the approach that you take? So I think that's going to be different for every company, but ensuring that we kind of have that closed loop feedback has been critical for us in ensuring that we can improve what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, I would say absolutely like make sure that it is tracked over a period of time using AI and automation to make sure that it is really being utilized and leveraged to scale. And collaboration, right? A close collaboration on the success plans with executives across both ends is really very critical to make sure that success plans really make an impact.
Okay, that was a lot, but super, super valuable. I mean, I think that we could have continued for another hour. So first of all, I would really like to thank you. I think it was thank you for sharing with us from your experience. I'm sharing here a webinar, an invite to a webinar that we are going to do within few weeks about how Okta, which I guess most of you are familiar with, scaled thousands of success plans using EverAfter. It's going to be a very practical and an interesting session. Sherrod, Sangita, if the audience has follow-up questions, can they follow you? Can they follow you on LinkedIn? What's like the best way to reach out?
Yeah, send me a note on LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, I don't know how much I post on LinkedIn if you want to follow me, but you can definitely send me a note.
I would absolutely be open to that as well.
Cool. Same. So thank you, everyone. And I wish you a fantastic rest of the day and week. And thank you again, Sangita, Sherrod. It was really, really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you for having us on. Good to see you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you.